This yoga practice begins with some breath work, which is a modified form of microcosmic orbit breathing. And then the yin posture sequence includes postures like butterfly, half saddle, sleeping swan, caterpillar, and a restorative version of fish pose. So as with any yin practice, sometimes props can be helpful. So useful props today might be a few books to sit on, maybe a couple blankets, maybe a couple of pillows, and if you have a couch cushion can be extremely useful in today's practice. So cultivate your intention for practice, and we'll begin. The sitting posture you can try to start off in today is a posture known as rock pose or hero's pose. Now, if you have the range of motion, you can just do it without any props, but for most of us, sitting up on some heights will actually be helpful. So I have a pile of books here, and what you'll do is you'll actually sit on your knees in between your heels on the pile of books. And what you can do is find enough books to make this high enough so that it's accessible for your knees and for your ankles. And if no amount of books, no amount of height makes this easy to sit this way, then just simply sit a different way. It can be cross-legged, maybe on some height, or maybe even in a chair for this breath work. So the breath work we'll practice is called microcosmic orbit breathing. And so what you want to do is first get grounded. Notice your natural breath here. Invite yourself to be in the present moment. You can do that by listening to the sounds around you, noticing the contact that your body makes with the earth here. Allow yourself to feel stable. So if you feel like you're tipping over, that's not stable, which means you may have to change your seat. Grow your torso up long. Maybe shrug your shoulders up towards your ears and then back and down here. So spine is nice and neutral. Hands can be wherever they're comfortable here. And then begin to lengthen your breath. So longer duration inhales, longer duration exhales. Face is soft, jaw is released, eyes are soft. They can be even closed if that's comfortable for you. And then just notice if your nose is not stuffy and you can breathe easily through your nose, try this exercise with your mouth sealed shut and just slowly breathe through your nose here. Continue with this natural breathing and maybe enjoy this. Or if you want to go deeper, if you want some mental focus added to this, then you can add the visualization of the cosmic orbit breath. So the cosmic orbit is an orbit that we make with our mind as we slowly trace the breath around the perimeter of our torso, so the front and the back side of our torso. So after your next inhale, after your next exhale, when you start the next inhale, visualize a little ball of energy at the very base of your torso. And then as you slowly inhale, it slowly creeps up the back side of your torso. So basically along your spine, and you're feeling that breath, that light of energy as it creeps up until at the end of your inhale, it reaches the crown of your head. And then when you exhale, it slowly moves down along the front side of your head. So down the front of your face, down your neck, down through your collarbones, down through your sternum, through your abdomen, till it makes it all the way back to the very base of your torso. And then next inhale, begin the process again here. So again, when you start at the base, and as you inhale, notice the backside of your body that you can't see, but you can feel. And this is the point. As you slowly inhale, feel the different parts of your spine and the backside of your body as you inhale, and as you exhale, it moves down the front side of your body. So we'll do this type of breathing for maybe another 4 or 5 rounds of breath here. And this is a visualization. If it's too much, you don't have to do the visualization. Just notice the wave, the phase of each inhale and each exhale. So a few more cycles of this breath at your own pace. Another visualization that you can add to this breathing is the visualization of the moon going through its phases. So as you inhale, visualize yourself starting from a new moon phase at the base of your torso. And as you slowly move your energy up through the back of your spine, the phase of your moon is moving from new to full. So when you get to the crown of your head, you're in full moon phase here. And then as you exhale, the moon begins to wane and the energy moves down the front of your torso until finally becomes a very old crescent moon and eventually turns back into a new moon. So maybe just one more cycle of this breath. When you get done with your last exhale, for a moment, for a couple of breaths, drop the visualization, drop the lengthened breathing, and just come back to a couple normal, natural breaths, just to find your center again. And then when you've done that, you can come out of Hero's Pose. If you were in Hero's Pose the whole time, if you were sitting up on some books, you can place the books aside, find a different seat. I'm suggesting cross-legged, and if you're sitting cross-legged, you can always sit up on a little bit of height to make this more tolerable for your knees. Maybe put the non-dominant leg in front. So for me, that's my left leg, unless that's too painful. And then the right leg can be in front. Grow up tall through your torso. Just a little bit of tiny light movement before we make our way into the yin section here. So hands on either side of your torso, inhale, and as you inhale, make a slow sweeping circle up towards the ceiling. Lengthen your torso and lengthen your arms towards the ceiling as you do this, and then as you exhale, begin to gently twist over to the right. Bring your arms down. The left arm can rest on your thigh. Right arm comes behind you. Grow up tall through your torso. We'll stay here for a few breaths here. So just find your twist. Find the twist that feels right for your body. As you inhale, see if you can create more space in your torso. And as you exhale, see if there's a little bit more ability to twist. One more breath here. When you get done with your next exhale, stay here in the twist. Reach your back arm, your right arm up alongside your ear. And then see if you can gently laterally side bend over the opposite knee, over the left knee here. And just stay here for a breath. Don't worry how far you go. You just go until you kind of feel an edge here. And then inhale yourself back up to center, release, and come all the way back to center. We'll do that all on the other side. So hands on either side of your torso, and then inhale. Sweep your arms up overhead, lengthen here, and then exhale and gently twist over to the other side. Same procedure here. We'll stay here in the twist for a couple of breaths. So while we're here, maybe grow your spine nice and neutral on inhales, and then on exhales, see if there's any room to twist. And it might be interesting where you find that room here. So one more breath here. And then you can stay here in the twist, or if you like, you can raise that left arm up alongside your left ear and very gently laterally side bend over the right knee. Again, you're just kind of going till you start to feel like this is as far as you can go with ease. Maintain this for a breath, and then bring yourself back up. Come back to center. Maybe shake it out here a little bit. It will start the yin yoga sequences. So these are the postures that we will try to hold for a while, for several minutes. And the first one of these is called butterfly pose. So you'll, again, sit with your legs extended out front, and you are someone who has a lot of tightness in your back legs or your back body. Sitting up on some height like I'm doing is a really good idea. You might have other props available if you need to prop knees or torso. Anyway, bend your knees, lower your knees out to either side. So right knee goes right, left knee goes left. Bring the bottoms of your feet together, and maybe make a diamond shape with your shins and your thighs here. Now, if this is already creating a lot of sensation in your thighs and in your hips, you can allow yourself to just stay here. If you're feeling instability and pain in the knees, then maybe take something that you can stuff under whatever knee is the issue here. Maybe it's both knees, so you have You have something under both knees here. Now if you would like, you can fold forward here. So if you're folding forward and adding a forward fold to this, grow up tall through your torso just for a moment so that you can hinge forward from your hip sockets. And your hip sockets are clear down here until you don't go anywhere anymore from there. And for a lot of us, we don't go very far until we're stuck there. Once that's happened, then allow the rest of your torso to fold, bend, and round. You do this by relaxing the muscle fiber in your torso, and you just stop wherever you stop. Don't worry about what it looks like. You're worried about what it feels like, and you'll know what it feels like because you'll feel stuck here. It's like, okay, this is as far as I go. Wherever that is for you. I'm going to start a stopwatch here for about 3 minutes or so. But the point to yin is you stay in the posture as long as it's acceptable to you. It doesn't have to be comfortable, but it should be trauma, injury free, i.e. there should be little intense pain going on in the posture here. And so that might mean you can stay here for 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, and then you have to come out. So you don't have this burden upon your back, sometimes literally speaking, that you have to stay for the entire time. You're staying for your own body's time here. And while you're here, the idea is to check in with your breath. Just notice and feel what your breath is doing. But also, you're trying to use your breath and the time to soften your muscle fiber so that the traction of the pose, the pressure, can go into the yin tissues, and the yin tissues are the structural tissues that surround the joint capsules and the bones and the muscles and the organs. So it's the fascia and the ligaments that we're trying to get into. And it's better to approach this through soft muscles, because the more you engage the muscles, then the muscles get the workout. And that's great for the muscles. It's a good yang practice. We need to keep the muscles healthy. But the point to a yin is to complement muscle practices with connective tissue practices. So we've been here for almost 2 minutes. We have about 1 minute left in this posture. So I'll go quickly through the principles of practice. The first principle of a yin practice is to find your edge. So you move your body into a yoga posture. You go to a place where you stop and where you feel sensation. Since we all have unique bodies, that place is a different place for each one of us. So we need to find it. We find it through feeling it out rather than what we look like here. Pain, injury, red flag. That's telling you that you're not at your edge, you're way beyond it. So you can move out and find something more appropriate. Second principle is called stillness. Once you've found your edge, then you try to stay for a while. And that requires patience. That requires fortitude. That requires an intention to stay. Now, if you're feeling pain, you don't have to stay. If you don't feel anything, it means you move deeper into the posture. So there's a lot of exceptions to the stillness rule. The final principle is time. So time is actually what does the work here, rather than muscular intensity. Time is the magic. Time is the workhorse. So we have a couple of breaths left here in butterfly. Maybe soften one last time, and then if you folded forward, plant your hands on the ground. Use the muscles in your arms to do the lifting of your torso back up to seated. And then when you get back up to seated, notice if there's any rebound in your torso. If there is, maybe work it out with some light movement. So what's often nice after a forward fold or even a back bend is something neutralizing, like a gentle twist. Or maybe something directly counter, like a gentle back bend. Put your hands behind your hips, lift your sternum up towards the ceiling, and then bring yourself back down. Maybe your hips and your legs have had enough of butterfly, so bring your knees back together, extend your legs out long, point and flex your feet a few times. And then any other little motions that you need to work out the kinks, you can do so. So one thing that you can do is something very young in nature, something that's very core engaging. So this is called the hinge maneuver. You lay on your back, bend your knees, and then extend your legs up towards the ceiling. Press your heels up towards the ceiling. So muscles in your legs engage, muscles in your core are active here. Hands and arms are on either side of your torso for stability. Head, neck, shoulders comfortably on the ground. And then see if you can slowly lower your extended legs over the period of maybe 2 or 3 breaths until they very gently make it to the floor here. Maybe stay here for a breath, maybe make some other gentle movements. Bend your knees at some point. Roll over to one side, bring yourself up to seated, and we'll get started on the next yin posture. This one is called half saddle pose. And if you have a couch cushion might be handy, although you can also do this with just a couple of pillows, or you can do this without any props at all. You might want to watch the demo and see if half saddle is for you. So, luckily I have a big couch cushion here. You'll put the couch cushion at the top of your mat here, and you'll start out seated, legs out in front, with the narrow end of the couch cushion up against the back of your torso, the back of your hips. And then from here, you'll bend your left knee and bring that left heel on the outside of your left hip. This might not work for you. Maybe you need a little bit more height to keep pain out of this knee or this ankle. So you could maybe take one of your books and place this book underneath your hips and see if that creates enough height that it's no longer painful in this knee or this ankle. Maybe you can put 2 books. Maybe this is not happening here, in which case there'll be an alternative for half saddle. You can stay here. This can be your half saddle. Or the next step is you can slowly allow yourself to go back. Now it's nice to lie on something. This is why I have the couch cushion here. You may not need a couch cushion. Maybe you need 2 couch cushions here. So it doesn't matter how far you went back here. Remember, this is yin, so we're trying to relax the muscle fiber. Notice my knee popped off the ground. This is okay as long as there's no pain in the knee here. My other extended leg is relaxed. You might have to adjust the height of the prop that's underneath you. Now, if this is not working for you, if it's generating too much pain, then you slowly come out of saddle. And the alternative for this is Sphinx pose. So you'll make your way onto your belly, legs comfortably extended up behind you. Bring your elbows underneath your shoulders, shoulder width apart. Neck is in the most comfortable position possible, so it's either hanging, you're holding it up, or maybe you have something underneath your head that you can actually rest your head on. So half saddle is essentially a back bend if you folded back. This is why Sphinx is an appropriate alternative here. So you can try Sphinx if saddle is not your, or half saddle is not your cup of tea. Otherwise, we'll try to stay. We'll try to stay in half saddle for about another 2 minutes or so. So for a moment, find your breath. Notice what it's doing. Accept what it's doing. Maybe your breath is short and choppy because this is a really intense posture. That's okay, as long as there's no pain. Just notice what your breath is doing. Maybe it's very long and yoga-like, and you're loving that. That's okay too. Whatever your breath is doing, this is a practice of allowance and acceptance. So it's nice to just stop and say, okay, my breath is fine. Whatever my breath is up to here. And then notice the other sensation. Notice where this is generating pressure. Since we all have different bodies, I have no idea where this is going to generate pressure for you. A lot of people feel it in the front of this thigh, maybe in the knee or the ankle. Some people will feel it in their sacroiliac joint, deep in their back of their low back here. Maybe you have achy shoulders or an achy neck, and somehow all of this is making things achy. So it's okay. This is where you just notice. It's like, oh, yeah, this is where I'm generating posture. This is where I'm generating some intensity here. So we have about 6 more breaths in this posture. Allow yourself to just reside here, but you're also noting what your sensations are, and if they feel injurious, you give yourself permission to come out. So this yoga sequence is being recorded on the day of the new moon. And it turns out these major moon phases that we experience, new moon and full moon's far more dramatic and more interesting than the new moon, but I'm kind of a fan of the new moon because the moon, in going through its phases every month, is a storyteller. It's the ultimate storyteller because everyone in the world can see the story of the moon. Maybe just one more breath here on this side of half saddle. Now when you're ready to come out of half saddle, the easiest way out of half saddle, if you've been here for a while, is to roll away from the bent leg. So you want to roll to the right. So you gently roll off your couch cushion, release the left leg, and then do what I call a systems check. Slowly work the joints in that leg to make sure they're still on speaking terms with you. So roll the ankle a little bit, maybe flex and extend the knee a few times, maybe make little hip circles here. And then when you realize that leg is still working, slowly bring yourself up, come to seated. Maybe there's some other wiggling or movement that you'd like to do, and then we'll set up for the other side of half saddle. So again, find some props. Maybe you don't need the couch cushion. Maybe you can go all the way to the floor. Or maybe it's another round of Sphinx pose. A light back bend here. Otherwise, legs are extended. Bend the right knee and then bring that right ankle on the outside of the right hip. You can actually just stay here if this is generating a goodly amount of intensity. But if you want a little bit more oomph, then you experiment with going back here in half saddle until you find your edge here. Remember, head, neck, shoulders should be comfortable. The emphasis of this posture is in the traction created in the front of the bent leg and in the pressure that's getting created in the low back here. And then from here, we'll settle in. We'll find the stillness and the patience to spend some time here. Check in with your breath. Notice your sensations. Soften your muscle fiber. The moon has an important story to tell us, and it's the story of change. So every month the moon cycles through all of its phases to remind us that this is the nature of the universe, this is the nature of life, this is the nature of all things, to naturally cycle through full moon, through new moon, through waxing, through waning. And it's there, up in the storyteller's sky. Not only is it changing faces, but the moon orbits the earth, so it seems to change its position with respect to the stars. Now, nowadays, us modern humans, we can completely ignore the moon. We have all other kinds of distractions to keep us occupied at night. But ancient peoples understood the importance of the celestial bodies, the celestial storytellers, the sun, the moon, the stars, meteors, comets, the clouds, lightnings, thunderstorms. And some ancient cultures had particular reverence for things like the sun and the moon, to the point where they had sky watchers to note the journeys that these celestial objects were making across the sky here. So we have about 1 more minute here in half saddle, if that's appropriate. Otherwise, maybe come out and do something else for a while. Maybe even come into Sphinx if this is getting too painful. So one of these ancient cultures was the Native American culture of the Southwest about 1,000 years ago. They had a particular reverence for the sun and the moon. And they would send out sky watchers, astronomers, every night to notice where the stars were, where the sun, the planet, and the moon were with respect to the stars. The ancient people of Chaco, the Chacoians, about 1,000 years ago, had particular reverence for the moon. And they noticed over a very long period of time that the moon has an even longer cycle than a monthly cycle. The moon kind of wanders against the stars, and this wandering path takes 18 and a little more than a half year, so 18.6 years for a moon to make a complete wandering path before it starts all over again. You have to observe the moon every night for decades in order for you to know this. And these ancient peoples did, and they noticed this. Not only did they notice this, but they recorded that fact, that the moon is on another cycle that's much longer than a monthly cycle, this 18.5-year cycle. So just one or two more breaths here in half saddle. When you're ready to come out of half saddle, then same procedure here. Very slowly roll away from the bent leg, so we're rolling over to the left. And then make that systems check. See if that right leg is still working. So a little bit of motion in the joints of that leg. And then when you're ready to sit up, slowly make your way to seated. And then maybe clear your props for this next posture. The next yin posture is called Sleeping Swan. And so I'll demo the posture, and if you decide it's not for you, the alternative will be Eye of the Needle here, and I'll demonstrate that after Sleeping Swan. So you'll make your way onto hands and knees. Come onto all fours. And then bring the left foot up between your hands. Maybe inch the right shin back a few inches. So you're in this low lunge here. And then start walking your left foot over to the right side of your mat, so the opposite side. And then you start lowering your hips, lowering that left knee. If this left knee gets grumpy, bring the left heel in closer to your hips. Just go until where your hips stop. Now if you feel like you're tipping over, then this is where you might take some props to prop up that hip here. So you can take some pillows, or maybe you can take a few blankets, or maybe even a couch cushion. You can do swan here first. So swan is press your hands into the ground, lift your torso up into a slight back bend. And then slowly, watch your sensations while you do this. Slowly lower your torso any amount until you feel enough pressure somewhere. And it's like, oh yeah, I can stay here for a while here. So this is Sleeping Swan. Maybe your torso makes it all the way to the floor. Maybe you have to stay up on straight arms. Maybe this is too injurious, this is too painful. So if that's the case, slowly make your way out of Sleeping Swan, make your way onto your back. And you can come into Eye of the Needle instead. So for Eye of the Needle, you'll lie on your back, bend both knees, put both feet on the ground, and then take the left ankle, bend the left knee, put the left ankle on the right thigh, and that left knee is out wide. Maybe this generates enough sensation so you can stay here, or you draw this right knee in, and you can keep that right knee in place by clasping your hands behind the right thigh. Some of you might be able to reach in front of the right shin here. So find your version of Eye of the Needle until you're feeling, again, you're moving by feel. So you're moving in until you feel enough pressure. That's where you want to stop. Again, not painful, just something that feels like it's a stopping point. Otherwise, continue to stay in regular Sleeping Swan here. So we're about halfway through. We have about another minute and a half. on this side. Now that's my stopwatch. That's not by what you're experiencing at home here. So these ancient Native Americans who lived in kind of the four corners region of the U.S., so think New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado. There was this center they lived called Chaco Canyon, and in Chaco Canyon there's a small butte called Fajada Butte. And in Fajada Butte there's some petroglyphs. There's a spiral petroglyph that's very, very well known. It was discovered by archaeologists several decades ago. And it's hidden behind some big boulders. And what they noticed first is that the spiral pattern records the solar equinoxes and the solar solstices. So on the day of the solstice, there's this dagger of light from the sun that passes directly through the middle of the petroglyph. On the equinoxes, two of these sun daggers, streaks of light, pass along the very edges of the petroglyph. What they also discovered is on the days where the moon has its maximum declination in the sky during its random 18.5-year wandering, the moon shadow at moonrise ends up on one side of the spiral, just grazing the edge. And at the opposite extreme, when it's at the lowest declination of the sky, 9.5 years later, the moon shadow at moonrise passes directly through the middle of the spiral as well. So what the ancients had discovered was a site where both the sun and the major moon cycles were recorded, and they recorded these through making this spiral petroglyph. So even though this was made 1,000 years ago, they had discovered the major moon phases here. We're coming out of Sleeping Swan on this side. So plant your hands, use your hands and your arms to lift yourself up, come back into Swan here. And then you can come out any way you would like. If you're wanting something a little bit yawn here, plant both hands, tuck the back toe, lift the back knee, and see if you can press yourself back and up into downward facing dog. Oh, and then maybe take your dog for a walk here. You can adjust feet, adjust arms. Spine is nice and lengthened a lot. Have strength through your shoulders and your front arms. Press your weight back into your feet here. And then maybe both knees come down. So before we do the other side of Sleeping Swan, since that was an asymmetric posture, we'll do a symmetric posture in between. And the symmetric posture is known as caterpillar pose. So caterpillar pose is related to butterfly in that it's a simple forward fold. In this case, you just keep the legs extended. Now for those of us who have a lot of stiffness in the backs of our legs, that can be an issue. So first you want to start maybe sitting up on some height, and then maybe have some extra props around. So maybe a couple of blankets, legs, maybe a pillow, legs extended out front. And if this is already creating a lot of pain in the knees, maybe bend the knees, put some extra stuff, blankets or pillows underneath the knees so that they can stay soft here. And then grow up tall through your torso and simply hinge yourself forward. Again, start from your hip sockets. When they're stopped, let the rest of your torso round over your legs here. Arms can comfortably rest wherever need to rest. Muscles in your legs soften wherever they need to soften, so they can fall out to the side or fall in. Head and neck are just hanging here. If the hanging neck is too much of a problem, find other props to rest your head and your neck on here in caterpillar. Now some of you that have a lot of range of motion, you might find this to be, you might have folded all the way forward. Your legs are straight and your torso is just resting on your thighs and you're feeling nothing. You're basically taking a nap, for a few of you out there. If that's the case and you want something more challenging, you can try snail pose. So I'll demonstrate snail, and if it looks like, it's like, okay, yeah, I think I can actually do that. You can try it. Otherwise, if you're looking at it and say, yeah, I think caterpillar's heart is difficult enough, then maybe stick with caterpillar. For snail, you lie on your back. You bend your knees. And then you raise your legs up over your torso. Arms are extended out alongside you. Hands are rooted into the ground. And then you bring your feet up and legs up and over into snail. Maybe feet make it to the ground, maybe they don't. Maybe they just float. Knees can be straight, knees can be bent here. So notice in snail I'm creating an intense back bend. So this is why it's related to caterpillar here. And you can just stay here. You have to be able to breathe in this posture. So if you can't breathe, it's kind of hard to do yoga. So notice you can still breathe. There can't be any pain in the back of your neck, or in your shoulders, or in your upper back here. But there can be a lot of intensity here in the back of your spine. So you can try snail. Otherwise, if you're wanting a challenge. Otherwise, for a lot of us, just regular old caterpillar. It's quite a challenge here. So maybe another minute or so here in caterpillar. So this ancient culture, 1,000 years ago in the Southwest, had such a reverence for the sun and the moon that they actually noticed this very, very subtle wandering of the moon that doesn't take a month, it takes 18.6 years to happen. That requires a lot of dedication, a lot of going out every night and watching the storyteller across the sky here. So about 3 more breaths here in caterpillar. If this is too much, you come out. If not feeling much, maybe final couple of breaths, you sink a little bit more deeply into caterpillar here. And then when you're ready to come out, you'll plant your hands, use your hands and your arms to slowly bring yourself up, lengthen out through your torso. So that was another forward bend. So you might need to do a little bit of wiggling around to work out the kinks of the forward bend. Maybe you need to bend the knees here too. You can even do some lateral bends. So maybe put one hand on the ground, reach up and over with the other arm. And do the other side here. But we do have the other side of sleeping swan to do. So if you like eye of the needle, it's eye of the needle with the right ankle on the left thigh. Otherwise, if you're trying this side of sleeping swan, you'll come to hands and knees again. And this time it's the right foot, the right leg that's up between your hands, inch the left knee back. And then start working the right foot over to the left side, lower the right knee, and adjust the heel as you need to. Maybe you don't need to adjust it at all. Maybe you have to adjust it a lot. Let your hips sink until you stop. Maybe you need some height underneath that hip. Maybe not. Plant your hands, a little bit of a baby back bend here. And then at some point, stay up on straight arms. Maybe make your way down onto forearms. Maybe make your way all the way down onto the ground or onto a pillow. Something that's comfortable just to rest your torso in. And then stay here. A few breaths here, a few minutes here. So a few minutes on this side here in sleeping swan. Ancient cultures around the world did have a reference. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have Netflix, they didn't have TVs, they didn't have media to distract them. what they did have was nature. What they did have was the sky. And so most of them had a deep reverence for the major objects in the sky, like the sun and the moon. But they also had a major reverence for the earth, the ground underneath the feet, which is, by the way, also an astronomical object here. And the cultures, the Native American cultures that preceded the Chacoyan culture, that created and developed the petroglyph spiral that recorded the equinoxes, the solstices, and the lunar cycles, also had a reverence for the earth. The people that predated them, the ones that lived 2,000 or 3,000 years before the Chacoyan people, used to make round houses. They're called pit houses. And what archaeologists, paleontologists, or archaeologists were finding in these round houses was a small hole in the floor that didn't seem to have any kind of practical value whatsoever. But when we talk to the Native American tribes today, they know what that small hole represents. It had a spiritual significance for them. So a lot of the Native American peoples believe that their origin story is that they emerged from the earth through some sort of hole or portal in the ground. In that small hole in those ancient 3,000 or 4,000 year old pit houses was meant as a reminder to the people living in the house where they came from. It was a reminder to them that they emerged and came from the earth. One Hopi legend says that the ultimate, this ultimate place of emergence was actually the Grand Canyon. And these symbolic little holes in the ground, they had a name. Their Native American name is called the Sipapu. So the Sipapu was a symbolic place of emergence. It's like, we came from the earth. We came from here. You might have your own stories about where you came from. But not only is this video recorded on a new moon day, it's also recorded on Earth Day. And so this is an appropriate time to maybe cultivate some reverence for this place that we live on. Maybe it's also time to think about coming out of this posture since we've been here for a while. So maybe one more breath. And then when you're ready, if you're in full sleeping swan, plant your hands, use your hands and your arms to bring yourself up. Slowly come out however you would like. You can come out into downward facing dog again, if you like downward facing dog. If you're not a big fan of downward facing dog, then do something else for a while to work out the kinks. After these hip openers, I always like to do something I call windshield wipers. And for windshield wipers, I come to seated. Bend my knees, feet are fairly far apart, and then I bob knees to one side, bring them back up to center, go over to the other side, and kind of bob back and forth a few times. And then from here we'll move into the next yin posture. This one is called fish pose. And you'll need a few props for it. So you can, if you have a couch cushion, that might be handy, but you can also use some pillows. So I'll start out demonstrating with this couch cushion. You can try this. This might be a little bit too much. So fish pose is to create traction in the neck by allowing the neck to move backwards. So you'll take either couch cushion. I'll demonstrate with a construction with pillows too. You'll lie back on this couch cushion with your head off of the edge so that your neck is moving backwards. Maybe have some padding for your head here. And then you'll make your way onto the couch cushion. Adjust yourself so that your torso's on the couch cushion, but the back of your head is off of the couch cushion here. So notice my head is kind of just hanging towards the ground. It's actually resting on the blanket so that it's comfortable. Everything else is just soft and relaxed. Collarbones are open wide, shoulders are melting on the other side of the bolster here. This can be subtle, but this is a nice opener for all the connective tissue that runs through the neck. Now for some of us, this might be too severe and this is generating pain. If that's the case, you want to decrease the angle here. And you just use something that's not as high. So slowly, maybe find something a little bit more reasonable. And that could be just some pillows with maybe some blankets on top. So you can take a couple of pillows. Maybe line them up end to end. If you want to, you can put a blanket over the top of them just to make everything a little bit more comfortable. And then, just like with the couch cushion, you can lay back on the pillow, adjust your height so that your head hangs off the edge here. And there doesn't have to be too much sensation here. The idea is we're reversing the direction that the head and the neck and the upper shoulder area tend to be in when we're hunched over a desk or sitting at a table or in a car or doing something on our computer or on the phone here. And then just to spend some time here. So maybe 3 minutes here. And again, if this is too much for your neck, maybe you have a very sensitive neck and you don't want to do this at all, then slowly come out of this. Maybe work on a back bend again so you can find your couch cushion. Lay back on the couch cushion, just like we did for Sleeping Swan. But this time, so with the small end up against the back of your torso, this time both legs can be comfortably extended. And then you're just creating a tiny little bit of a back bend here. You can work on your low back here. So head, neck, shoulders are on the couch cushion and they're comfortable here. So that's a good alternative if the restorative fish pose a little bit too much for the neck. Otherwise, if it's feeling okay, then you can just come back and enjoy this posture maybe for another minute or so. Again, arms are soft. They're just kind of resting on the ground. Legs are soft. Legs can be kind of in a shavasana position. They can be in other, maybe you like having the knees bent. Maybe feet are wide and far from each other and you can have your knees just kind of bobbing in towards resting on each other. You can do other things. You can do kind of a reclined butterfly pose here. Whatever you would like to do with the legs, just allow them to be relaxed here. So head and neck are relaxed. So you can notice the pressure in the neck, maybe soften the muscles in the face. Eyes can be closed. You can notice your breath. Maybe there's a little bit of strain in the throat here. So about 5 more breaths here. Check in. Check in, cultivate this connection that you make with the earth on Earth Day. And as you breathe, notice that connection you make with the moon. As you inhale, you create the full moon. As you exhale, you create the new moon of renewal, the moon where you start over, where you emerge again from the earth, where you come out of your sipapu and start a new cycle. 1 more breath. Now before coming out of this pose, if your head was back for a long time, use your hands and your arms, softly clasp your head with your hands and use your hands to bring your head back up to neutral. And then from here, maybe hold your head, bring yourself up a little bit more. That way you won't overstrain your neck when you come out of this posture. And then slowly maybe roll over to one side, bring yourself up to seated. And then from here, we'll move into our final posture, that of Shavasana here. Take resting pose here. So there's a lot of different options for this last pose. You can lie in traditional Shavasana, just arms and legs extended. You can lay on your side if lying on your back is too strainful. If there's other restorative yoga postures that you like, maybe it's legs up the wall, maybe it's reclined butterfly, you can do those. You can also sit quietly in a meditative posture. That's what I'm going to do today for Shavasana. So find a comfortable seat if you want that, or maybe it's traditional Savasana where you're just lying on the floor. Wherever you're at, find something that feels secure and stable and peaceful so that you can cultivate this sense of focused relaxation. And then begin this journey through your being to soften every single area of your being. Maybe start with your head, so release your jaw, soften your tongue, soften the entire inside of your mouth. Soften the inside of each cheek. Notice if there's tension there. Soften the skin around your lips. You can soften your nose, your chin, skin around your left ear, the skin around your right ear. Soften the muscle fiber around your eyes. So the muscles around your left eye socket, let them be released, and the muscles around your right eye socket. Soften that space in between your eyes. Soften your forehead, soften your temples, the very crown of your head. Soften your brain. Postpone being a human doing. Give yourself permission to be a human being. That means you have nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just breathe. Just exist. Continue to soften down through your collarbones, shoulders. Release your right arm, right palm, right fingers. Left arm, left palm, and left fingers. Notice the tips of all of your fingers. Left hand, right hand. See if you can notice a light tingling sensation in the tip of each finger. That life force, that prana. Can be subtle. That's you. That's you in each one of your fingertips. Continue to soften through the rest of your torso, so relax your ribcage, release your abdomen. Soften down through your hips, your thighs, knees, shins, calves, ankles, heels, soles and tops of your feet. And then soften all of your toes on both feet. Notice the tip of each toe on each foot and see if you can notice that subtle sense of energy, that subtle tingling sensation in the tip of each toe. Release, relax, and surrender your body-mind 100%. Visualize yourself in a small, quiet desert canyon late at night. Thunderstorms have just moved through. You're seated, soft, warm sand. You can hear distant thunder echoing off the canyon walls, but above you is a vast, clear sky full of stars. And what you notice is a brilliant moon above you. Allow this soft moonlight to create a deeper sense of peace and contentment. Begin to deepen your breath. You can make little movements with fingers and with toes. You can expand those motions into wrists and into ankles. Maybe make gentle motions with arms and with legs. If you're lying on the floor, at some point, gently bend your knees, roll over onto one side. When you get there, stay there for a while, stay there long enough to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for your efforts in your practice. But also a deep sense of gratitude for you, your unique manifestation in the universe. The universe is ecstatically joyful that you're here. And then slowly bring yourself up to a comfortable seat. Maybe wiggle around a bit, find a stable seat here. Grow up tall through your torso. And then when you're ready, bring your hands together at heart center. We'll end practice with one chanting of Om. You can either join in with me or you can simply listen to my voice. The inner light in me honors the inner light in each one of you. Namaste.